Oh, it's gonna, well, it's a different system. The population doesn't grow. It's managed. It's pretty good. It's managed because in the previous times that might say the wheels fell off of society and people died off. Hello, my name is Jim Getch, and I had an NDE when I was 11 years old, 40 something years ago. Okay, my cousin and I were going out into the desert to go to some caves, and there were some children alongside the road. It was a gravel road, and we gave him a good berth. He got in the loose gravel and he lost control of the car, and the car went off the road and it flipped off of the driver's front corner. The car rolled over, end over end and sideways, 1.5 times, and I was a passenger in the front passenger seat, and the last thing I remember was rising up out of my seat, headed up towards the dashboard and in the windshield, and then I found myself on the ceiling of the car, facing out the back. Um, I was looking at the palms, the backs of my hands, and then my vision got blurry, and then I could see the back of my head, and then I could see my body, and then I could see the bottom of the car as that rose up out of my body, and then the children that had precipitated the accident were jumping up and down, clapping. They were very young. They were probably, I think, 3 and 4.5, 5, under 5 years old, probably. And one of them was off of the ground, uh, and I could see the compression waves from their clapping coming out of her hands. It looked like heat does, how it bends light. It looked like that. Um, like you might see some of a barbecue or something that's really hot, how it distorts the light. It looked like that. And realizing there's very young children out in the desert, I knew that they weren't there by themselves. And so I panned around and I could see their parents. And I was just hovering over them. They were about, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile away. Um, and I at first went over the mother, and they had a, they're having a picnic out in the desert, and they husband had a motorcycle, and she was making sure that she brought everything she meant to bring. She was looking in the back in a box to make sure that she had everything that she meant to bring. I could, that's the sense I got of what she was doing, and I could experience her like better than she knew her own self. I knew everything that her hopes and fears and aspirations, and so I checked her out for a little bit, and then the husband was there, and he was walking back to the back of the truck. There was a gas can on the tailgate, and I could experience him too, but he wasn't. He didn't have as much of a rich emotional life. He wasn't. Didn't have as many concerns, it seemed. So I checked them out briefly, and then my attention got drawn to the horizon. You know, when I looked out to the horizon, I shot out into space, and I found myself out in space. I don't know how far away, but there was what I call points of perception, probably close to a couple hundred of them. Um, they were like I was. They were a specific point in geometric space, but they didn't seem to have a body or take up any space. They were, which is how I felt I was. I didn't feel like I had a body or anything. Or I was just a point in space, perceiving the world, and they were I saw them as being the same, but I could tell they were there because they were like distortions against the stars. There's a lot more stars than we see at night. When you get out of space, the whole thing is almost all stars, and that's how I could see the individuations of the group, and they were all paying attention to something that was to the left, with like a could have been a planet or something that was brown, um, and most of them were unaware of me, but 3 or 4 of them were vaguely aware of me. They didn't want me to come any closer, though. I got the impression that I would upset what they were doing. That I felt like they were doing was very important, and they were all paying attention to something that was to the left of where I'd come from. And so I didn't know why I was out there in the first place, and so I thought they don't want me to be any closer. I don't have any desire to be any closer. I don't know why I'm here anyway. And my thoughts went back to the accident, and I remembered the wreck. And so I turned around to go back where I came from, and all I could see was stars. And I wasn't sure. I couldn't see the Earth or the solar system at all. So it is very far away. I don't know how far away, but. And I wasn't exactly sure where to go, but I seemed to know. And I came back down. I came to where I approached the Earth. I could see the Earth. And I went through the atmosphere, came above the car. And I was looking down in the car, and I could see the bottom of the car. I could see my body in the car. And having come from that other direction, I was facing a butte. It was about 2 miles away. I checked it later. And so my attention got drawn to that butte, and I went right up to it. And I could see the blades of grass that were on it, and the grains of the soil. I mean, I was like right next to it, and I could see that the grass had like a spiritual essence to it. It had a light within it, like a soul, and it seemed to have an intention, almost a level of awareness. We wouldn't consider it an awareness or a consciousness, but it had like a spiritual essence to it, and I'd noticed that the ground did too, and it was even more primitive, but a lot more numerous. And I've since come to realize that the surface of the soil has a lot of bacteria in it. There's an interaction there where the bacteria kind of feeds the plants and things that grow on it. And because I noticed that the grass was feeding off of that more primitive life forms. I kind of re-experience it when I think about it. So my hands are a little bit shaky because I wondered, where's this coming from and who's we? That answer said we. It didn't say I was here, Gatinas, and that. It said that we are here. So it was like inclusive, like I was one of them. And that's when I turned to see what was behind me. And I saw back out into space. And so I thought, Well, actually, I got concerned because I thought, wow, I'm dying. That's what's happening. And maybe this is how our brain fizzles out. Maybe it does these things, and then when I had that thought, my original intentions, my original instructions for coming here flooded back into me. I thought, no, there's too much I have to do. And that put me back in my body exactly how I'd seen myself in the clear. I'm absolutely convinced that we exist after death. And I don't know if you call that still an atheist or not. I don't think so. I'm not particularly religious, but I do see a great deal of wisdom in religions. And I think they're based on a true story. Absolutely. Well, when I looked at people in the future after the population drops significantly, they kind of lived in a hive mind. People communicated telepathically. And, it's fairly uneventful compared to what I've seen of the world today, because everyone kind of knows what everyone else is thinking, so there's not a whole lot of surprise and novelty. Like my experience things here during this time anyway, and there wasn't a great deal of variety in the hues. The hues of the people were like a khaki brown color, and they were, yeah, it's pretty much ubiquitous of that whole what was projected. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, they seem to be beaming with love and very happy, conscious of who and what they are. But as far as like a variety of experiences and circumstances, if if the point is to learn how to give and receive love, I don't know how much they're learning as much as expressing. It's more like living in an expression of love more than learning. You know, because we have those moments of expressing love and receiving that expression here, but it's few and far between. Usually it's not all day long, you know, all life long. And that's kind of what it was like that in that time. But it was projected for quite a few generations, but it did become indeterminate again. Oh, it's gonna lapse. It's a different system. The population doesn't grow. It's managed. It's pretty clear that it's managed because in the previous times that might say the wheels fell off of society and people died off, we our numbers descended to the point where we had we lived a hand-to-mouth existence, more tribal for sure. I mean that was even more basic than tribal almost, and we worked our way up, but it was uneven how it worked its way back up. This time that we're at a maximum now, it's like about the maximum that we've ever gotten to, and it falls to a particular number, but then it doesn't go all the way down like it did before, and it stays there like a flat line. So in the totality of it, what I had seen is that we started out with very small numbers. People lived for a very long time, and then people kind of got enamored with the earth and identified at our bodies and what we're interacting with then the population kind of gradually went up and down and up and down, and then it grew up to a high amount and then fell down. And then did that again and then fell down. And then did that again and then fell down. And then this time we do that again, but it stops at a certain number and just stays there. Which is, yeah, quite a departure in in all ways, really, from what it's been here since we were seated here, which is interesting in itself. When we were seated here, it was, oh, the planet was in full bloom. And they, like, as spiritual beings, we observed the Earth for a while, and then they did something that, I guess, to alter the species is all I can guess, but they did something because it was like a blue light kind of misted out whatever it was, and then that's when they started embodying what we think of ourselves as humans now. And that was the first peoples. Very sparse at first. And it was similar. They were completely aware that they weren't their bodies. They weren't exactly beaten with love. Well, they were, but not like in the future. It's different, and people look different in the future. Their features and their face were different. I didn't think I would live to see that period, that I was just before it. I kind of hope that's true. I hope things work out, because the things do look not very promising for us in the near future, like you said. There's prospects for war, and we have devastating weapons today that could really actually make that outcome happen, unfortunately. And then there was like 9 particularly sparkly points, about 9 or so, scattered throughout the record, mostly in the earlier parts, because, excuse me, this was the 4th time we've been this populous on Earth. So that in the 3 times previous, the population just dropped to almost nothing. And we lived like a more tribal existence and worked our way up into the cultures that we see today. 3 times previous is not the exact same cultures, but the same amount of people. And we had mastered nature to the point like we have now. The physical aspects of people and their lives was there, but it was ancillary. What mattered in that record was our resonance, our hue and our color, and we're certainly not our bodies, and we're certainly cared about. And so I know that we're eternal, which is kind of daunting to realize that for all I know, we exist forever. So, and there are beings that appear to truly care about us and love us. The media is going to make a lot of it. Whether it's in actuality in people's experience, how dramatic and drastic it is, I'm not sure. Because I do think the media presents something that's a little out of step with what's actually happening in the world. So, because it is pretty hyperbolic, though, with the media, that even that this is I don't know, it's going to be very interesting times for sure. Money's collapsed, and that's when wars happen. I mean, there's a lot of precedent for what we're facing. There's other ways to solve it too. They used to do jubilees. We don't hear much about that, but there's such a thing called a jubilee, where all sides just forgive debt and start over instead of exacting payment. That's the kind of reset we need. This tapestry opened up in front of me in the place of the ground where I was looking at the ground. But it opened up into this tapestry, and the tapestry was everyone who had ever lived on Earth, um, from when we were seated here to the present. And each person was represented as like a fiber in the tapestry. Each person had their own individual hue as they're represented in it. And the past was to the left, and the present was mostly to the right. Then there was a future that was projected as well to the right up to a point until it became immaterial. It kind of just turned misty, hazy. And the height of the tapestry was how many people were embodied at that time. So it had varied, and it went up and down. And in that tapestry, you could see that the fibers, our lives are all interwoven in the way we interact with each other. And then those fibers made threads, and those threads made the tapestry. And so wove it. It was like a weave, and you could it was a living record. So when you examined it closely, you could see people living their lives. It's like it was happening right then, and it had a like a direction of time. It was left to right, and you could see each like individual had their own hue, and then their like friends and groups, they kind of had a hue, and then like your family had its own hue, and the community, the local area, your state, your country, your like, and then like religious or beliefs, all those contributed to give everyone their individual hues, and it was so multicolored, it's way really rich, different variety. And you could see when people died off from disasters or wars, and you could see that there was whole peoples that didn't know about each other, and they were isolated from each other. And then you can see where they interacted with each other, and their colors would mix, like a cultural exchange. And even when people were annihilated through war, their hue would be absorbed by the other side because of their from the interaction, I guess. So like nothing is ever like completely destroyed in that way. It's kind of interesting to me, and everything about the world and life, and this absolute sense of serenity, like nothing could be the matter anywhere in the universe. And I was looking down at my body, and I thought, if I exist like this, why would I be like that? Because I felt like I knew everything. And I mean, I need things that I never even thought to contemplate. Of course, I was 11, but still, it was a lot. And this answer came to me that we're here to learn. We're to learn how to love. And I thought, what? That's, does it make sense? If we exist like this, and I feel like I'm loved, being loved, and the answer repeated itself, said that we're here to learn how to love, to learn how to give and receive love. And I thought about Earth, how we live on the Earth, and so many stars and planets. I mean, when you get out of the atmosphere, there's so many stars, and they have to have planets around them. It seems to me. And, having seen that group, they seem to be trying to cultivate maybe a planet to try to get life started on a planet. Possibly. They were very serious about it. But I hope it was just the people that I was looking at, but the Earth looked fairly barren, actually. Yeah, the people were actually seemed to have to pray their food into existence to get their plants to grow. I did see an example of that. It is interesting that Howard Storm was shown part of the future a few years after my experience, and he was shown the same thing to a large degree, which is pretty interesting. That's over 40 years ago, so it could have changed, but the future looked just as material as the past. But I think it's a fraction of the amount of people that we are now on the planet. And it seems like there's room for more than that. We'll see what happens, I guess. We're all influencers, all of us. It was very clear in the Akashic record. Somebody told me what it was called, but it's very clear that how influential we are to each other in our interactions. I think a lot of times we get the impression that we aren't, but we're a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. And so just by our own way of being in any given moment, we're all influencing each other. And so sometimes some of these narratives and some of these things to worry about can create an energy of their own within us. And if we resonate with that, we might be participating in the outcome. If we resonate with more positive ways of looking at situations, more creative ways. Because that war is like when people run out of ideas. It's this little, we're more aware of our own energy in any given moment. That if we realize when we're feeling fearful or confused, and be conscious of that and not react from that place, but actually be conscious of our own experience. I think that would go a long ways. I think because a lot of the disharmony and stuff is us being intoxicated by those kind of fear and anxiety rather than a conscious awareness, calm awareness. We're our own existential threat. We're not really threatened by the environment other than through each other. But communities is what carries people through, and it's a sense of community and care for each other. It is the people that are here now And, we've been through these situations before. So, I mean, if you believe science, we're 280,000 years in. As a species, we find a way.